Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. This is John with Tommy's Top Picks here to bring you your weekly market update. Now, let me say, there's a lot to talk about. I'm going to keep it short. I'm not going to go on and on. I know you guys have probably watched all the other content out there about this Flesh and Blood 2.0 and the Monarch print run release and all the rest. So I will defer to greater YouTubers than myself, such as Rudy, Kitchen Table, and the rest, because they have covered this topic quite a bit. DM Armada, I liked his take. I actually liked Team Covenant's take as well. I thought that was very good. So ultimately, I will just phrase it as such. I am happy with the 2.0 release. I am kind of meh on the 125,000 boxes of Monarch. It doesn't really make a big difference to me. It wasn't higher than I expected, really. I thought it would be around 100,000, but I didn't have very good context because, as many of you know, I started playing after that whole bubble phase. So I didn't have that emotional investment of the Monarch release and kits and whatever else. My first purchase, I believe it was right before Tales of Aria came out, so I'm sure I bought some Monarch, but at that time, but I think it was already on the downtrend at that point. I honestly can't remember. I have to go back and look at my financial records for that. But point being is I didn't buy it on the upswing on that, Mon to 1K hype. I bought it after it had already started to cool off, so I didn't have the same sort of emotional attachment, hoping I was going to get free 10 days, etc. That said, playing as a player that's come in since then and a collector that's come in since then, I find it beautiful. I think the whole market and game is getting itself in a right place. I like the 2.0 announcement. James White covered a lot of ground with that. If you watch our other video, our reaction video to that, you can hear some of my opinions on that. I like the idea of these white borders coming out and being for players. If you listen to Rudy's comments, it's explicitly going to be a relatively short print, and the history packs, that is, and it's basically to help onboard new players. It's to expand their reach into new LGSs to allow new players to come in. And it sounds like a lot of it's targeted at Europe, honestly, because Europe is growing faster than the US. So that tells you something. So when you take into consideration the opinions on the market, make sure you kind of check where they're from, because that may be a factor. That said, let's go ahead and jump into all of our prices. I have some new visualizations to show you, which is really what this video was supposed to be about, but then all the news happened, so I figured I had to touch on it a little bit. So prices cooling off, clearly reacting to the news. Nothing too surprising there, honestly. As we said before, the blue means it's cooling off, the red means it's heating up, and I only mark the color code based on if it has gone down or up 5% or greater. So that is the basis for this. So let's just go through it. Unlimited boxes, WTR sitting flat, has been at 61 for a month now, so that's interesting. I find it so curious how low WTR is compared to other things. You'd expect it to be the oldest, the higher because there was less supply originally. I think with Unlimited, they must have had a secondary wave or something that increased the supply, because if you look at these prices, like ARC is way higher kind of across the board than WTR. And granted, some people have messaged me saying essentially it's because the cards in there. There's better cards in ARC that are more useful, generally speaking, or there's better coverage of specific classes, that sort of thing, which makes sense. I mean, it's a player's game, a player's market. You will see that kind of reaction, but I still find it interesting because you would assume WTR had less supply, but it definitely doesn't feel like it. So anyways, let's go through it. 61 for WTR. ARC is at 94. It has cooled off from its 102. Recall that it did spike up a little bit and then climbed even further. So it's kind of that mountain, dip. So it's kind of reverting to the mean. Before that, it was sitting in the 80s, 80 to 90 range. So it's down 8.5%, which is notable, but also still high for the past month, essentially, or above its low for the past month. So not too bad. Crew sitting flat. This is after a climb and a continued climb, 76, 79, and it's sitting at 79. So it's kind of hit a plateau of price, which is pretty nice. And this is all unlimited, obviously. And then we have Monarch is dropping like a rock, probably on the print number news, especially the unlimited, because if first edition had that many, then unlimited probably has a lot more. So I imagine these are going to feel this pressure downward for a while. So we'll see what happens there. It is out of maps, so there isn't like a map price. I think I got that wrong before. I assumed map price was perpetual, but it's only 180 days, I believe. And so because it's outside of its 180-day range, it can go to whatever price the market wants, in this case, $58, which is, yep, the lowest in record on my record. So that's since January, end of January. It's never been this low. So if you want some boxes and you want unlimited, this is the time to get them. Might be interesting to get them considering there won't be unlimited in the future. I don't know if I'd speculate on that, but it's something people are thinking about. Since unlimited will no longer be a thing, it is kind of special that there is an unlimited edition, because historically, like imagine 20 years from now, you look back and it's like that phase when they did that thing, right? But that's assuming you believe 20 years from now it's going to be worth having. I do, personally, just for anyone out there wondering. I freaking think this game is awesome and the new stuff coming is great. And yeah, they're going to have a market rough patch, but I do think it'll come out the other side just fine. Anyways, unlimited cases, WTR is down 6.28% to 239. This is, in fact, the lowest price in my record, so this is another grab if you want unlimited case of WTR. This is a good time to get it, at least over the last year, we'll call it, since January, so since the beginning of the year. ARC is down 3.5% at 400, Crew 319, Mon 279. Those both sat flat. Tales of Aria dropped 13%, so that's pretty significant and worth noting. Is the lowest? Nope, it's not the lowest in my record. Back in January, it's down at 230. January, February. So it's kind of mid-range actually, between its high and low over the past few months. So yeah, it did drop hard. We'll give it that, but not the end of the world. WTR boxes eked up a little bit. So this is the interesting thing, and we'll see how this plays out over the next month. Don't take this. Remember, the news came out. What is it? Yesterday, day before yesterday. So markets will immediately react to news, be silly, emotional, and then clearer, calmer minds will prevail. So take this entire column as not a black swan event, but a spike event. A bit of volatility was introduced into the market, and then we'll compare it. It's actually, I'll highlight this and we'll come back to this later, because I bet in a month from now we'll look and say, oh yeah, it all reverted back to its mean, because frankly it didn't change much. It really didn't, but the market likes to react, and that's just how it is. That's what markets do. And someone's making money off the news freaking people out, and someone's freaking out about it and maybe losing money, because that's how these things happen. Anyways, first edition, we saw it tick up to 4,050 again. Not a big deal. We'll look at the trend in a second. It is almost enough to mark it as heated up. It's 4.94%, but just shy of my kind of cutoff point, so not quite. And it's probably better because it keeps bouncing in this range anyway, so I don't really want to keep marking it as a drastic change when it's really just its kind of wiggle in the mean, of its normal price range. ARC 1975 eked up a little bit, not too much. These are all first edition boxes, of course. Crew sitting flat. Mon down 3.7%, which is a lot less than one would expect. Considering last week that it spiked up over 5%, right? And this news of 125, this basically, like if we're going to draw a conclusion, this says the market thinks 125,000 boxes is just dandy, like just fine. It barely dropped over that news. So if market data is a way to conclude kind of like what the group thought is on it, 125,000 boxes of Mon didn't matter. That was fine. Everyone was kind of priced that in already. The market priced it in. In fact, you might even say this was leaked information, a week before someone heard what the number was before it actually hit, because you remember that did happen quite a bit ago. And the market spiked because it was less than it initially priced in back here when it was down in the 150s. So point being, it didn't move much, which is interesting, and we'll keep an eye on it though, because it may eke down with the new news and all that sort of stuff. I mean, obviously there's a lot of volatility right now, so we'll play it by ear. Tales of Aria down 5.8% to 85, cooling off quite a bit. Now remember, we had up, down, so this is looking like volatility at the mean. And it's still right within that range. It's low. This is 85 tends to be like the floor. 84 going back here. So we're at the floor again. We're essentially in a channel between 84 and call it 90. And it's just going up and down in that space, which is not that unusual for something that's a relatively new set. You get volume gets dumped on the market, it gets absorbed, price goes up, volume gets dumped on the market, price absorbs, etc. So Everfest, and again, relatively new, being that is now hitting a point where people want it and are using it more post the release. So at that stabilization period, if you look at the check mark of releases, Everfest down 2.6%. This is not that much, not out of range. Let's see, anything. It is 75. It's not its lowest because he had 72 and 71, but it is on the low side. So it's we'll call it leaking down a little bit. Not too shocking there. WTR first edition case, again, as I always say with these two, don't really pay attention to these prices. They're not really worth noting because these are TCG player prices. That's where I draw the data from. They're also list prices, not sold, and they're also not what any of these products are going for. Go to Facebook, you'll find a sale. Go to Discord, you'll find a sale. That said, it does indicate kind of where the market thinks things are. And interestingly, WTR hasn't moved, obviously, because no one's buying that in the case format. It's very hard to get and very expensive. And then ARC is similar, but it has popped back up again, which we saw this happen a few weeks ago. I said ignore it. Happen a second time. Let's keep an eye on it, because if it happens 3 or more times, then this might be indication that this is running out of supply in all the market, right? And again, this is probably the worst data set to use to come to this kind of conclusion because it's just a market listing on TCG player of all places. But as far as it goes, if this persistently rises, it will be an indication that whoever's listing it at these prices sees that the market supply is drying up and that these prices need to go up. And this may be our leading factor. There's market leaders and market trailers. In this case, because ARC, as everyone knows, was a little bit more popular, a little bit harder to get than WTR, which we know that based on the out of print number time frame, right? Because Crew went out first, which we knew was a low print of Unlimited because they didn't actually expect to do it. ARC then went out, and then WTR. So ARC is kind of our market leader because it's a set, an actual set, as opposed to a supplemental set. So ARC being the low volume or lowest quantity, or I guess most demand, actually is probably what it was, most demanded early stage set. This will probably give us an idea of what's going to happen as it starts to go up. So what we'll see, what I'm saying is, what we'll see as supply disappears, which it will over the next couple of years, I imagine. This will go up first because it was the highest demand product and it ran out first. And then the market will rebalance these because these are actually rarer. It's just the demand, I think, wasn't quite there for WTR that there was for ARC. Even Rudy's like, ARC's my favorite set, right? How many people say that? A lot of people say that. So anyways, what we see is this will go first and then this will follow so that it's rationally variant. You have the rational basis of difference, and then the whole market should recalculate after that, and that's where you get arbitrage opportunities. So keep an eye on that, especially if this starts sticking up here. And again, confirm the data. This is a bad data source. It's TCG player. Once this sticks, like say this happens for 3 or 4 weeks in a row, volatility maybe even ticks it up another kick, then you'd start looking into other data and say, okay, is this real? Are the sales on Discord and Facebook higher? If you are seeing that, as the prices, basically the market is absorbing a new price, eBay sold listings, etc., then you'll know that the market is restructuring around these older sets, and now you can expect WTR to go up, and then you can expect specific cards to go up within those sets, the value cards that are rare, because essentially it's saying you can't get it anymore, which we're already starting to see. I don't know if you guys have noticed, but first edition rainbow foils, for these first 2 sets at least, there's not many on the market, like 1, 2 on TCG players. So keep an eye on that. I do expect those to go up. I think this news with the white border thing and what's coming is going to be a big factor in determining the value of those, because you're not going to see rainbow foil black edition going forward. That's it. The number on the market is it. So I think Rainbow Foil, despite the pringling and all that stuff, it's going to kind of be a special thing that's obtainable and within a reasonable price range for now. How long? I don't know. Some of them are already up in like $60 to $90 range. This might be the time to pick up what you want if you're looking at this as a long-term collection investing situation, because the market is so down right now. We are looking at a cooling off because of the news and all the rest. So those special pieces would be a good thing to pick up while the market's kind of chilled out, because people are like, I don't like the game anymore, blah, blah, blah. Go buy collections of Rainbow Foils if you can, if that's this type of thing that you're interested in for a long-term investment. Long-term, mind you. It could continue to drop in the short term. So just keep that in mind. And as always, I'm a guy slinging cardboard. This is not financial advice. So moving on. Crew cooled off quite a bit. Now, we did see the spike a few weeks ago. It slowly drifted back down. I think it's interesting that it's down to 2,700. That seems to be kind of the floor going all the way back. So it's at its low. If this goes further, this will be very interesting. I will keep an eye on that, and I will probably pick up some more crew first if it does. Just because it's such a popular set. It has cards for every group. It's one of the first 3, blah, 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 Monarch, first edition cases. Let's see, it's up $16, so barely moved. Yeah, no impact. Again, no impact on the market based on this print run number. That's actually pretty surprising considering the volatility around everything else. What in the world is happening? Anyways, Tales of Aria down 5%, 5.7 to 350. It is close to its low of 344. So it is down to kind of its lowest point. I don't know that you need to go pick that up. That has been readily available. I assume if you're listening to me, you probably have it. EVR, if you're a collector type, EVR is down 7% at 286. This is definitely the lowest it's been, and I expect it will go lower. Something that came out of Rudy's post or Rudy's video that is interesting. This is supposedly, now you're taking it from a taco master, from a guy who listens to the taco master and all the rest. So, take it with massive grains of salt. But here's the word. Rudy said when he was talking to James White himself, EVR Unlimited in September may not happen or may get pushed back. The whole reason they put that listing up was specifically to stop and stem the support calls. Their entire support team was overwhelmed with shops and distributors and whatever else calling constantly to find out when that was going to be released. So they put he didn't say it was an arbitrary date, but it sounded like a relatively arbitrary date, on the website to stop the calls from coming in because it was killing their support staff and they couldn't get to other questions that were more important considering there was no real information on this. So that was a way to slow that down. James White apparently said if they get to September and the market doesn't need it, right, there's plenty of first edition, then they'll push it out. They'll delay the release of it. So this market reaction to that post, I'm assuming that's part of what this is excessive, is unnecessary. But that said, it is the latest set. It is out there. It is past its hype point. This is a very normal dip, post-release dip period. So, maybe it's just that. It could be that. But worth noting, worth keeping an eye on. Let's see how it goes in September, if they actually release it or not, especially with the historic stuff coming out too. Also curious, how do you interpret the historic? Is it just going to be from the first 3 or will it be from the first 6? Because I think there's a little bit of uncertainty on that, right? It's the key cards from previous sets, and I think it says biannually, so there'll be 2 every 2 years, which makes sense from a historic set. You're going to do the key cards for 6 sets going forward. Makes sense. But the cards that they previewed, I think, were all from the first 3 set. So curious what you guys think. Leave a comment below what your interpretation of it is. I am curious if they put out this product, in the next month or so, does it have EVR cards in it? Or does it only have the first 3? And then if that's the case, will they do a second one like a year from now that will have the EVR up to EVR in it? How are they going to do that? I'm curious. I don't know exactly. They weren't super clear on it. So we'll find out. Couple things to note: the Arcanite skull cap from EVR has gone up to $100. It had been sitting down at 90-80 kind of range for a long time. It finally ticked up. Aether Wildfire extended art, which apparently has been short printed, or at least has less print than the other full arts, which is why it was up at 115, is coming down, cooling off back at 105. And then it's just wanted to call out again the Rudy video. Take a chance to look at that if you have some time. It's long, it's an hour long, but it's worth listening to the whole thing. Again, this is like as close to firsthand information as you can get besides the article itself, because James White had a nice conversation with Rudy and he kind of reports what he hears and why it's happening. I'd say he's pretty mixed. He says he's still in it, but he has some, he's a little down on the situation. I think mostly because he lost a lot of money with Monarch, which is understandable. But he does seem to believe in it long run. He does seem to think it will get past this phase, and if it turns that corner, then things will be great. He's also very excited about PvE. And this idea of like a D&D campaign thing, which I guess James White spoke with him about a little bit and got him a little hyped. It's essentially going to be the commander for this, but they want to get it right, so they're taking their time. I'm super hyped. When I heard about that, I was like, hell yes, let's do some adventures with the Heroes of Wrath. I love that idea. So anyways, on to the new visualizations. I know this is taking longer than my usual recording. Hopefully that's okay. Put together some charts and graphs. This is a dynamic chart, so I can just go here. This is the unlimited chart, so you can see the trend and pattern on WTR unlimited cases, and then it has the percent variations here. So that's how far down it dropped in the last week, right? And then down below, I have the boxes, and then the case divided by 4. Versus the boxes. So this is an arbitrage opportunity. Whenever it drops below the dotted line, drops below the solid line, that means you can buy a case, break it open, sell the boxes, and there will be a profit. Now granted, in this case it's a $1.25, so not worth it, but it's one of those things. We'll watch this over time. Whenever you see it dip below, that means the case is worth getting to break open and sell boxes of. That's pretty much it. I just wanted to put that in there to kind of give an idea compared to the above. We'll probably use this chart more than anything else as we go through it. Again, variance on percentage gain lost, and then the raw data is down here, and I can go through it. I should probably switch the order. Maybe next time I'll have them flipped around, so I can change this. So we'll do ARC again. Here's your ARC situation. Had a nice arbitrage here. Moving forward, we're up here. We did see a dip post news. I think that's true of everything. And this is again unlimited, same thing. Here we go for crew and Mon. Maybe I'll just overview some of this stuff myself. I'm not sure exactly how I want to present it. I just thought some visualizations would be nice. Looking at minor arbitrage 50 cent. Ooh, opportunity on Tales of Aria. And then EVR. Oh yeah, no, EVR Unlimited doesn't exist. So nothing there. And then we can go over to first edition, which is probably the more interesting one. And we'll see. Let's see. Yeah, I do need to switch these around because I just realized you can only see so much of the chart. WTR and WTR and ARC, obviously useless data because there's nothing really happening there. Crew, a little interesting. This is that mountain dip we were talking about. So, and it came down to 2,700. Here's your arbitrage opportunity sort of chart. Box versus case divided by 4. You can look at the variance in prices. Monarch. Yeah, I'll come up with a better way to present this to you guys. Maybe we put this in a newsletter or something that goes out for patrons. I'm not sure. Or maybe if you think it would be interesting to get access to as a patron, then we could discuss that. Put that in the comments below or something like that. Either way, I found it to be an interesting tool to visualize the historic price changes and volatility. Here's that kind of like channel of up and down, up and down, up and down, right within a straight price range. So essentially, this is a flat at the median, or right here in the middle, is the best way to interpret that. With one arbitrage opportunity right here. Sorry, there's the percentages, Tales of Aria again, and then EVR does actually have data. First edition. So it's just been doing its post-release dip, slowing down here it looks like, and we'll see how this plays out in the long run. I imagine it will continue with the new news down and to the right for a little bit and then slowly curve up and give you that check mark. As of right now, I only have it doing 3 months of data. So, and it shifts. So every week you'll just keep this same number of data points and shift over. I might do it with more data. It's a bit of a pain in the butt because of the way these visualizations work. But it might show better trends if you have, say, 6 months of data on this. Then you can actually see, like, here's release, here's the post-release hype, here's the dip, here's the curve up, and here's the steady eddy, going forward. Especially with the older sets, it would be, well, I don't know, Monarch probably doesn't look like that because of all the craziness. But it's worth seeing that long-term visualization. So maybe I'll use different charts. I don't know. I'm still working on it, but this was just a new addition. I thought it was interesting. Hope you guys enjoy it. And that is it for today. Longer than usual, but reasonable amount of time to get through all the topics. Let me know what you think of Fab 2.0 in the comments. I'm dying to know what other people think. I'm hyped for it. I love it. I think the whole concept is going to be good for collectors, rare collectibles, white borders for the players so the players can play, because it is a player's game and it's a very, very good game. So that should stay their focus. I agree. I just would like to see some things to give some love back to collectors, which for me, the white borders does it. Along with the rare cold foil situation. I think it's golden. And then from there, we'll see what happens. I mean, there's a lot to look forward to. I'm psyched about the PvE. Can't wait for that to come out. I will definitely be playing that with my friends. Yeah, let me know what you think about the visualization and everything else. If there's anything else I can do or how we can present data that might be useful for you. But that is it for today. I hope you guys are having fun, cracking packs, and playing games. And I will see you next time. Have a good one.